Hey everybody, welcome to TYT Sports. I'm Ben Mankiewicz, that's Jason Rubin. This is the Super Bowl preview brought to you by the Vizio P-Series 4K Ultra HD Smart TVs. Joining us right now is Taylor Jones. He's the Director of Content and Media Relations for KB Productions. He's been an analyst at Fox Sports, the NFL on Fox, played ball for 4 years at Northwestern. Taylor, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start with first. I know that you've had a difficulty figuring out how this game goes down, but where do you come down now and why?
Well, listen, I think it's a truly pick 'em game. We talked about it before we got on air here. You could go either way. You could make 5 arguments for why the Seahawks are going to win. You could make 5 arguments for why the Patriots are going to win. And you could convince the person you're arguing against that that'll be the case.
That's right.
Earlier in the week, I probably would have said Seahawks. For some reason right now, I think I'm leaning towards the Patriots, but everything I'm probably about to tell you is going to argue in favor for the Seahawks. So
that's the key.
It literally is a pick 'em game.
I like an analyst who contradicts himself before he starts. That's great. Okay.
Well, it's the NFL. You never really know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Seahawks, I think, have not lost by double digits since 2011. So it is those who, if you think the Patriots are going to roll like last year's game, and this ends 34-14, that would be incredibly unlikely. Again, 2011.
That's also not the type of matchup this game is anticipated to be. When you look at Patriots Super Bowls and you look at the matchup between the Patriots and the Seahawks, these aren't blowout teams.
Well, the Seahawks have blown some people. These teams, these guys can blow out bad teams.
Not a team like the Patriots.
But Jason, keep in mind, last year's Super Bowl, the underdog blew out the favorite. So it can happen, and the Super Bowls have been oddly lopsided historically. Not all, but
that
many.
Super Bowl was more in favor of a Seahawks matchup.
All right,
because Peyton Manning's a downfield quarterback, unlike Tom.
All right, well, let's get into that. Jason brings up a good point. Taylor, so you're going to tell us why the Seahawks should win and then conclude that it's probably the Patriots. I'm fascinated by this. Go.
Well, hey, we brought up toxic differential a couple weeks ago, breaking down some of the earlier playoff round games. It's a statistic that combines the turnover differential and the big play differential. Without getting too much into the numbers to bore all the viewers, I'll just tell you this. It's about a 98% accuracy rate in determining the winner of the game. With that said, Seattle led the league last year, won the Super Bowl. This year, they're head and heels above the other teams in the league at plus 76 in a toxic differential. To give you an idea, New England ranks even with a 0, and that's about 14th in the league. So that tells you how high above Seattle is when it comes to looking at that statistic. And I'll give you the biggest discrepancy, why Seattle's so high, why New England's at even. It's in the big plays. New England gave up a lot of big plays of 20-plus yards, and they were 26th in the league at earning big plays of 20-plus yards, which now looking at the matchup against Seattle, I don't know how big of a factor that'll be as far as throwing the ball down the field, because you aren't going to do that against the 6'3" Byron Maxwell, the 6'3" Richard Sherman, the 6', whatever he is, Cam Chancellor. These guys are tall and long. You aren't going to challenge them deep. I think New England will run a lot of underneath crossing patterns. If you're an offensive guy, you call them a rub route. If you're a defensive guy, you call them a pick route. It'll be up to the refs how they call those plays, but I think that'll be a big factor in determining the winner of the game.
So if the Patriots, who seem to be, keep in mind, a couple of things I thought of. When the Seahawks are at plus 76 there in the toxic differential, it's not so much that the Seahawks make big play after big play, it's that it's almost impossible to get a big play against them. So that's a big factor.
Yeah.
And then the Patriots, they don't really go for the big plays. This is a team that has nothing but underneath receivers. Now, Gronkowski obviously is capable of making a big play, but frequently it's after the catch.
And many, never mind, point.
So, although, again, you can't dismiss the yards after the catch because those count as big plays. So, but the Patriots would seem to be a team best equipped because they don't have to redo their game plan because they can't go downfield, right?
Correct. I mean, and just to contradict myself, like I said I was going to do, the Patriots also lead the league in 10-plus scoring play drives. So if anyone's capable of sustaining a drive rather than going for the kill shot, it's the Patriots. And like I said, I think that's what we'll see, more of a ball-controlled offense, picking and choosing where they're going to attack against the Seattle defense. And like I said, trying to control the ball, gaining first down after first down rather than chunkage yards of plays.
One of the things the Seahawks are fantastic on defense is with preventing yards after the catch. They hold most players to yards after first contact to about 1.5 yards.
Yeah,
so this kind of matchup for the Seahawks, again, it seems like we're going to be leaning towards the Seahawks, and the matchup is in favor of the Seahawks. But the Patriots and their ball control, the way that Tom Brady's been managing the games with these underneath routes, these small, they're not testing downfield. Granted, Brandon LaFell's not a downfield threat, and especially when you have Richard Sherman on him, or Cam Chancellor, or Byron Maxwell, any of these guys. So one of the things that I found unbelievably interesting was how many times the Seahawks have been penalized this season, though. And that is 416 times over the last 3 years, a league-high 144 penalties this season. And their opponents flagged just 80 times, and so the Seahawks have been flagged twice as much. And they kind of have this mentality that it's hold on every play, and they're only going to call half the time.
Yeah, I mean, Taylor, I'm curious what your reaction to that is, because, you know, when I was your all's age and watching football, and the Raiders, even when they had some competent teams when Art Shell was coaching, but the Raiders traditionally penalized again and again and again, dumb, crippling penalties, penalty after penalty, whether they were pretty good or pretty bad. And it seemed to be, you'd think you'd blame it on coaching, and it would clearly cost them. The Seahawks, now, we see these penalties, and instead what you think is this is a aggressive defensive team. And that aggressiveness is partly what makes them great, and the penalties come with that territory.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at any of the great defenses. I don't have the penalty numbers in front of me, but if it's the 85 Bears, if it's the 2000 Ravens, anytime you're thinking about those imposing defenses, I'd imagine that they get penalized. But because, like, for instance, the Seahawks are the number one scoring defense, the number one total defense this year, there's some wiggle room there. You know, an offsides penalty here or there, a holding penalty, 5 yards aren't going to kill you. And, you know, we're going to line up the next play and we're going to punch you in the mouth. So I think that's kind of the mentality of that defense. And I'd say it's pretty hard to argue with right now.
Yeah, no. And especially with, first of all, the Jaguars were the least penalized team.
Yeah, so I mean.
It seems that, it really does seem that flags are somehow in favor even when they're detrimental to the progress of the Seahawks.
Again, I think it's a mindset, and the Seahawks have a mindset of aggressiveness, and aggressiveness is going to get you some penalties that at times are going to kill you. What you want, of course, is what everybody would try to coach is controlled aggressiveness. But sometimes it's going to go overboard, and I think it's really fascinating that because you see it in basketball too, and the great defensive teams, they're going to foul more. You're going to have more fouls, but when you have that mindset that I am going to stop you from scoring, there's a downside to that, but I think overall, certainly in Seattle's case, you take the upside with the penalties.
Well, you're going to get away with it more than not. They're not going to call, especially in the Super Bowl, they're not going to call a game where there's a flag on every
Let's talk about that, because go back to the what Taylor was talking about originally. So the idea then, you see a key, if you want to look at what's key for the officials, is will the referees allow the Patriots to pick to the extent that everybody picks? Sometimes they get called, that they'll give the Patriots some freedom to clear space for guys to make those catches 7, 8, 10 yards downfield.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big key in the game. I think you're going to see, whether it be Tim Wright or Rob Gronkowski or both of them, line up on the hash, run the safeties out of the play. You get Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas to guess, do I need to chase the carrot, is what we called it, and cover the underneath route, or do I protect the big play and stay deep with the two tight ends running down the seam? You might see LaFell doing some of those runoff routes, or China routes, which is where the slot receiver runs a corner, the guy comes underneath. And like I said, that could be either a rub or a pick, depending on how you look at it. But I think that's how the Patriots are going to sustain some drives. And I think they'll also take, who I think is an X factor in this game that not a lot of people are talking about. Everyone wants to talk about LeGarrette Blount. I'm talking about Shane Vereen, the other running back, how they'll use him, particularly out of an empty backfield, line him up outside the numbers, and make Seattle use the depth of that linebacker in their secondary, which you have the four guys in the secondary, and then after that, you can't tell me who plays defense for this team. So they're going to force the next guy to cover him, and I think that could be exposed.
All right, let's put a little pressure on you, Taylor, before we go. You got a score prediction?
I'm saying 27-17, and I'm going to say the Patriots.
Yeah, I am right with you. I have it at 27-20 Patriots.
I have 20-18 Patriots. When you look at Super Bowl
18?
Yes.
How are they getting 18? They kicking 6 field goals?
How do you get an 18? Well, two potential reasons. One, yeah, maybe there is 6 field goals because I don't really know how many times the Seahawks can get into the end zone. So one time in the end zone, maybe twice.
You got a safety in there.
No. I have 20-10. They score another touchdown. They have to go for 2.
20-10, that doesn't make any sense. But I hear you that there'll be some odd number. Why would you go for 2 down 20?
Because Pete Carroll's a crafty man.
All right, okay. All right.
It's the Super.
He's got the unusual score. It's fine. I'm going to give it to you, 20-18.
Thank you. In favor of the Patriots.
I got you. All right, Taylor, as always, really good stuff. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
This has been the Super Bowl preview on TYT Sports, brought to you by the Vizio P-Series 4K Ultra HD Smart TVs. Thanks for watching.